Joining us here today. We are recording, thank you very much. I'm excited. This is my first opportunity to bring training from the safety and risk side of the house since I've been in my role. I started that in the summer, around June or July. So everybody's been wonderful here at DARS. So thank you for the warm welcome on taking over safety and risk. And there's a lot of stuff that I've got on an agenda to do. So one of the primary things to do is safety and training. That's my number one goal, is to keep all the employees across the Commonwealth and all of our field offices as well as central headquarters here safe. So speaking to people and getting some input on some of the topics that were at the top of the list, it was very evident early on that active shooting was kind of at the top of it. And unfortunately, in the world that we live in today, turn on the news, there's constantly something going on with the active intruders and active shooters in the workplace and schools. And unfortunately, that's what we have to deal with today. So I was gracious enough to reach out to my partners here with Henrico Police Department. These two guys have stepped up to do an awesome job. They're part of their community.
No,
team.
that's Brian. Brian is doing all the recording. He's doing all that. I'm only helping.
Right, but as the computer in the room, it says,
Okay, we can hear you.
ask you, okay, and you have to say God, so the
So anyway, so that's kind of where we're going to kick it off. I'm going to let these guys do a quick introduction. They've got a PowerPoint presentation discussing active shooter and the response and so today's event is just to kind of take it all in, and save your questions for the end, if you will. And we're going to try to get to everything that we can as quickly as we can within a lot of time. This is just one of several series of trainings that we're planning with the safety and risk management team, the general services, over the next coming year. We've got several topics we're going to do. So I'm really excited about the partnership with Henrico as well as any other agency. So I encourage especially the field officers across the state, get with your local law enforcement, get to know your people, invite them to come by and do a site tour of your office. They'll be glad to do that. If you have any topics that you would like to do in your area, from Fairfax, Hampton Roads, from Roanoke to Whitfield to Stanton to all across the Commonwealth. These people here are protect and serve, and that's what they do best. So I'm excited today for these two guys. I'm going to shut up, back out of the way, let them take it over, and then we'll do questions and answers at the end. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. Hello, everybody out here and I guess across the state. Go ahead.
I'm just trying to figure out how we can do this so that you're not off in a corner, invisible.
I've got to push the button.
You've got to push the button.
Okay. If you need me to run the PowerPoint, I can do that for you. You got acting or
We'll fudge it.
Okay.
We'll fudge it. So, again, thank you all for having us. My name is Andrew Butler. My partner, Scott Phillips. I've been with the division for about 11 years now. Scott and I have done a lot of these presentations together over the past few months. I believe you've been with the division, what, 20 years? So, anyhow, so obviously a lot has transpired over the last couple years. We've had a period of time a few years ago where basically the world was shut down, everybody was working from home, and you didn't really hear much about active shooters because there weren't any large gatherings going on. But once the world started to open back up, just like clockwork, we had a whole rash of them back to back, so we started getting inundated with these requests, which, we do like to get because a lot of times people have never considered how they would react in the event of an active shooter. So every time you turn on the news, it seems like every day somewhere across the country, one of these events is happening, whether it be at a business, a school, university, you name it. And it can seem very scary, like it's going to happen any given day. And the fact of the matter is that it could happen here, anywhere across the state, any given day. That being said, the odds of you coming to work and becoming the victim of an active shooter are very, very slim. Still, we don't want this to dominate your thoughts throughout the day that, at any given moment, this is going to happen. Odds are still very slim that it will. But the point of these presentations is to basically, we don't want you to, the first time you think about what you would do, to be when it's happening. So we want to give you some options of how you can react in the event that it does happen. And that's kind of the point behind these. I wish we could tell you all that we could give you a guaranteed reaction that will save your life or to save other people's lives. We could sit here for hours and hours and go over dozens and dozens of scenarios and how you should do if this happens or if that happens. The fact of the matter is every situation is different. Every building is different. What your best option is just varies from person to person, from building to building. So we're just going to run through a few options of what some of your options are. And from there, we hope that once you leave here today, that you'll at least run some scenarios through your head. You guys work all in the same buildings all the time. Be familiar with your building. Know the physical address. So when you call 911 in the event that you need to, you're able to give them the information that they need to best respond. Let me get the PowerPoint going here. What actions should you take to keep yourself safe during an unusual situation?
We have technical adjustments to make.
So that they need you.
Question is, can they hear us remote?
If
You guys can hear us.
Do you hear it? Yeah, I'll be, whenever you just say go, go.
Because normally I would stand here since you all did the police thing and sit at the back of the room. It's not the science heating, is it? Yeah?
Yeah.
You stay away. I don't want the teacher to call on me. He will call on me. Okay, so we're gonna try to fudge this around so that we're not showing you our backs the whole time, we're not showing them our backs. The first time back to back, we can just do that. Okay. I'm the jokester of the team, in case no one picked up on that yet. So if I say something really super bizarre, probably meant to elicit a smile. Okay, it's a serious topic, but we don't have to be morose. Does that make sense? Okay, so here we go. Mark, if you would, and then, is there any way to confirm that the remote folks can hear us okay? Because we can adjust personal volume if need be.
We can hear you just fine.
Fantastic, okay? So we open up with, this is a scenario, this picture, if you can see that, it's a little bit washed out here, but this is a picture of a local mall where we staged an exercise, an active shooter exercise with our SWAT team and a bunch of members of the division acting as role players. So this is not an actual event. If you recognize the shopping center, it's in Richmond, but nothing actually happened there. So don't be grossed out. So what happens when you have what's the sound of an active shooter event? Is there an announcement ahead of time? And the answer is no. Let's move forward. Let's just get to that video. So go ahead and if you'll populate all those bullets, Mark, thanks. Okay, so you may hear gunshots. You may not really hear gunshots. You may not realize what they are, depending on how far away it is. You may hear, yelling and screaming. In many situations, you hear nothing. Buildings go silent. Okay, so there is no absolute red flag. Okay, this is happening now. Okay, but you always have to be alert to your surroundings, right? Okay? Yes, everyone, we have that commitment from everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, so no one walks through life like this, right?
With that phone.
Okay? It's a problem, all right? I understand why it happens, there's some generational issues here. My generation didn't have cell phones for much of it. But these things are a huge distraction. And when you're distracted, you become vulnerable, right? So we want to limit distractions. Pay attention to what's going on around you, okay? If you get that feeling in your gut, we still all have animal instincts, okay? Those have not been bred out of us yet. So your gut will tell you something's wrong, something's amiss, okay? You just need to listen to it, all right? Don't get into this problem, which are, what's stage one here of the responses? Denial. Well, there's no way this could happen. Okay, does anyone truly think that they are immune? Do they have some force field around them that's keeping an active shooter situation from happening to them. I could be an active shooter, couldn't I? I'm in a room with a bunch of people, and I have a gun, all right? So you're not immune. I am not an active shooter today. I'll just go ahead and put that out there. Relax. Today's a stable day. Yesterday, though. Okay, so then what do? If we can get past now, we get into the deliberation phase. You know, what's happening? What should I do? This is where we want to have an impact today. I want to minimize your deliberation. I want you to plan ahead a little bit, okay? And I want you to plan ahead every day. Just like if you have kids in public school, they're all getting active shooter, you know, lock and hide drills and all this kind of training. So it's kind of an inverse. We're training kids, but we're not training adults as much, okay? But is it just, do active shooting things just happen at schools? Negative. No. They happen everywhere. People go off the rails for all kinds of reasons. And you know, they think that the violence is the way to leave their statement. So, we're gonna minimize your deliberation, we're gonna get you right into the action, okay? Decisive action, because we had to start it with a D. Yeah, let's do something, okay? So, mark forward, please. So we have a, back one. Yeah, we can go back one and see if we can get this.
Hopefully, if this works, there should be a video that was produced by Houston Police a few years back. Again, not a real scenario, just let it play.
Are we gonna have audio?
Got it here, so we got it. You'll have it on your laptop, we don't have it here coming out, it's gonna go out.
See if we can.
Mark, you might need to stop sharing and reshare. Click the audio button.
Got it, thank you.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally, life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
Okay, so, kind of poignant, isn't it? The guy walks in, reaches into his backpack, what's he do first? Drops the security guard, right? Okay, who's most likely gonna act counter to his purposes? The other guy in the room with a gun, right? Okay, so drops him first. The key, I think, for all this is let's try to keep it simple. All right, so they break it down. This is done in conjunction with Homeland Security. Run, hide, fight. So run is your #1 option. In order to run, you need to have an idea of where you are and where you can run to, right? Okay, so if we have an active shooter out in this hall, are we all gonna jump up and run through these doors? No. Do we have another option? Break a window is sort of an option. Breaking these big windows sometimes is a little tricky. So, but what we want when you leave here, as Andrew said in his introduction, we can't go through and You know, well, in their office in Fishersville, this is what you would do. In this office in Blacksburg, this is what we would do. You know, we can't do that for y'all. So, basic principles. Get out, okay? And what if it's not an active shooter? What if you thought you heard gunshots, it was actually a car backfiring or whatever, and you still ran out of the office and went and, you know, jumped in your car or hid behind a dumpster or something?
Go back to your office.
Mark, we've lost audio. I was wanting to maybe if you could look on your end.
Mark, you're on mute.
About now.
Testing.
There you go.
Testing.
We're
Good.
working.
Working? Everybody hears us?
We hope.
We hope, thumbs up. Okay, so the cell phone, distraction, yes, but is it a great tool in these situations? Yes, okay? So the rest of your stuff is unimportant, leave it behind, get away. But if you can bring a cell phone, if you can get to 911 as fast as possible, do you have to say anything? You don't have to. If talking would compromise your safety, you don't need to talk. When police get a 911 call from an open line and we don't get a response, what do? We send people, okay? We're like puppy dogs. You know, we'll chase almost anything till we find out that it's not worth chasing.
Any phone that works, even phones that don't have service connected to them, no plan attached to it. If you call 911, it works. If you call 911, we can GPS plot it, usually to a pretty accurate, like in a neighborhood, we can get it down to one house. If you're in a building like this, we might not know whether you're in the building across the room across the hall or in this room, but we'll get it down to the building anyway.
Okay? And the open phone line gives us audio, right? If our dispatcher hears bang, bang, bang in the background, it's gonna send a whole lot of guys, people. I'll try to be gender neutral here. So, yeah, we're coming. The phone will tell us where you are, okay? You don't have to talk, but if the phone is there and it's an open line, it's a benefit to us. And then if you get to a place where you can talk to us, we're gonna hit you with a lot of questions. And a lot of the training that police departments have nationwide has come out of this Homeland Security focus, so it's fairly consistent agency to agency. So you'll be asked a lot of questions. Don't think that we're waiting to respond until you answer all 50 questions, all right? That's not the way it works. We're on the way. As you give us information, if you can, we add that information to what the officers on the way know, okay? It's a real-time update. We're not sending anybody until you do your part, okay? We're on the way. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, if you're able to call 911, our class, we can cut some bullet points so you can.
Okay, Vance.
So again, you'd be surprised the amount of people we deal with today, especially juveniles that at least claim they don't know their own address. I know this is your work address, you know how to get here, but know the physical address of the building. The location of the shooter. If you're on, this is a pretty big building, but if you're on the east end of the building and you hear shots coming from the farther end, that would be helpful to know. Closest to the Santa Rosa, whatever street you're closest to, if you're not familiar with, your north, south, west, east, if you're in the building. Anything you can give us is helpful. If you hear shots being fired, and this kind of goes back into your deliberation as to whether run, hiding, or fight is your best option. If you hear a shot, and then a couple seconds later you hear more shots and they sound like they're farther away, it might be, all right, they're going away from me. I have a better chance of running as opposed to my best option being fighting. If you can get away from the building, that's great. But again, as far as letting 911 know, the operator know that I heard a shot, it's getting farther away from me, so it's going this direction, that direction. That's helpful. How many shooters? Not all guns, when they're fired, sound the same. So if you hear multiple shots that sound different, it's usually an indication that either the guy has more than one gun or you have more than one shooter, right? Very helpful to know. Let's see, so a number of shooters if known. If you see them, we gave one of these presentations a couple weeks ago at the hospital around the corner. You need to understand that when we respond, you don't know what, if we've been given the description of the shooter, it might be somebody that looks similar to you. So if we get the description that we get is that it's a white male wearing khakis and a blue polo, but if you happen to be wearing that. So if we encounter you, doesn't mean you're gonna get shot, but you're probably gonna get a little more attention than the rest of the people that are running away, right? So just be mindful of that. If you can give us descriptors, it helps us because the person's not gonna be wearing a shirt that says I'm the shooter. They might ditch the gun, and they might walk out with the rest of you. That's happened before at the one in Colorado, the movie theater shooting. He walked out with the rest of the crowd, right past the police. They had no idea. So again, each one of these scenarios is different. So the more information that's given to us, the more that we have to act on. The number of potential victims, it just depends on where you are and what's happening. If you see people down, if you've seen 2 people that have been shot, then let them know that. You're probably not going to know, but again, they're going to ask you a bunch of questions. Tell them what you know.
Okay, so this goes back to your planning. Know where you are, know your building, know your access points. You know, it's not just work, it's church, grocery store, it's schools. So from this point forward, we want you to think about these things. If you're walking down the cereal aisle at your local Kroger or whatever, okay, and something happens at the front of the store, well, there's a back exit, right, isn't there? Pay attention to where it is, okay, as you go through your day. Try not to walk into problems. That's another big point that we stress here. When you get to places, take a moment, sit in your car for just a second and look around and see what you got going on. And note where your car is, okay? Some of these big shopping center parking lots, it gets confusing. So just take a minute, figure out where I am, pay attention to the surroundings, forget the shopping list, it's on the phone, it'll be there when you get inside. Okay? So, running, leaving everything behind, critical, the purse, everything, we'll come back to that.
If you guys aren't familiar with the buildings that you work in, schedule some time one day during lunch, get with Mark or whoever is in charge of your local branch and walk the property, walk the building, find out where your exits are.
Okay? When it comes to hiding, what we train for in the schools, same as what we train for in the workplace and others. Look for a way to make your space, wherever you're going to be, if you don't think you can get out, uninviting, okay? So, are we in a hard wall office? That's great. Do we have windows? Do we have a side light in the door? Okay? If we do, look at getting a way to cover that. All right, it doesn't need to be anything fancy. We just want to, shooters generally in these active shooter situations want numbers. They want to get as many as they can. They know they're on a limited time frame. Most of them, expect this whole thing to last less than a few minutes. And then many of them have already planned to commit suicide at the end. They just want to run up a body count as quick as possible, and then they're going to end themselves, right? So, that being said, what they don't do is they don't walk around trying to pick locks or credit card locked doors and stuff. So, does your door lock? Are you in a room where you can lock the door? Are you in a room where you can darken the room, turn the lights out? Are you in a room where you can cover window openings so that no one is sure that you're inside? Because historically in these kind of events, the bad guys don't spend a whole lot of time trying to get into rooms that aren't easily entered, okay? If they can enter easily and they've got a whole room full of people, that's wonderful. Otherwise, if it's locked or whatever, they're not gonna force it too much. They're gonna move on, try to find easier targets, okay? Silence. Silence is your friend here. So the screaming and hysterics and yelling and everything is working against your safety, okay? Fortunately, what increases your chance of survival in these situations is a bit of selfishness, all right? So if you're sharing an office with someone and they can't control themselves and be quiet, you may need to get away from that person, okay? Sound like screaming means there's a human, a live human there, and that is an actual target.
First responders that went into Virginia Tech back in 2007, before they knew that the shooter was already deceased, they walked in and they said, you never know anybody was in the building, because the people that were alive basically decided to play dead. It's an effective strategy, right? If you're in there and the guy's already been in the room, because he's just shooting stray bullets everywhere, hoping he hits people, essentially. So yeah, the worst thing you can do is panic, draw attention to yourself, because that's an easy target.
Go ahead. So, the last one is fighting. Okay? Fighting is, if you don't have a gun against someone with a gun, you got a little disadvantage, right? However, there's a great study I saw years ago, where they took police recruits and they gave them a make-believe pistol and a training pistol. It was not able to fire a real bullet. And they said, okay, we want you to go in and we want you to shoot these 3 people. Okay, and they had 3 people standing in front of them. And the recruit walked up and he walked up to the first person. The first person had a sheet of, well, they all had a sheet of notebook paper in their hand. And the first person held up a sheet of notebook paper. So the police recruit went up, pointed the gun, the notebook paper came up, and they started doing this game. In his mind, the recruit's mind, and this held out through multiple tests, they felt that a gun wouldn't work if it couldn't shoot directly at the target. So kind of interesting, okay? So rather than pull the trigger and say bang, and that meant that the gun is fired, he was trying to outchase the paper. So, create obstructions, create distractions, and be aggressive. This is your life. Does that person have the right to take your life? Anybody differ with that? We've had, in all the years we've done this, I've had one person say, no, I couldn't harm the other person who was trying to kill me, which left me a little speechless. Yeah, I'm very, very selfish about my life, my pulse. It's mine, I intend to keep it. So, yeah, act with aggression.
What can be used as a weapon?
Anything.
Anything.
What's a good weapon? You're sitting in church, in the pew, what's a good weapon? Hymnals. Get 100 hymnals flying at somebody, and I guarantee you, their aim is gonna be horrific. Okay?
Everybody in this room right now has got either a coffee mug, a water bottle, a cup, a purse, you name it.
Computer,
Yeah.
iPad, anything, tables, chairs, you saw the fire extinguisher, hands. Do we have hands and feet? Okay? Real simple. What's the target for hands and feet? You know, how many of us are Bruce Lee and can hit that perfect side kick on the bridge of the guy's nose, knock him out? Okay? What's the target, folks? Negative. Eyes. All right? Eyes. Yeah, I hit Andrew in the chest as hard as I can, he's gonna do this, and then I'm in trouble. I'm not sure if I'm faster still. Yeah, no, keep it simple. Eyes, if it's a gentleman, we have a very sensitive area that's a huge distraction when we're struck there, okay? So, very simple, eyes and groin. And what do we use to get to those things? Feet, you know? Unless someone's standing with their legs crossed, there's a pretty much direct target. Just get between the legs and go north, okay? You'll get a response, believe me. And then for the eyeballs, if we can spray anything into the eyeballs, if you happen to carry mace, wonderful. If you have hot coffee, wonderful. The fire extinguisher in the video, I would have had the fire extinguisher guy actually discharge the fire extinguisher into the face of the attacker. Even if he has goggles on, it covers the goggles, okay? So what's he gonna do? He's gonna reach up, because once our sight's taken away, when we're trying to attack something, it totally changes the game for the attacker. So they're gonna go and they're gonna try to get vision back, okay? So douse them with fire extinguisher, and then let the guy with the chair finish the job.
Remember, this is not supposed to be a fair fight. You're the good guy. They're trying to kill you, try to kill your friends, so all bets are off. You do what you have to do. We're coming. You know, speaking for the location we're in right now, in Henrico, if something were to happen today, it would amaze me if it would take more than 3 to 4 minutes to get the first officer on scene. But those would be the longest 3 or 4 minutes of your life. It's on you guys till we get here. Assuming that most people, I'm not gonna ask, but if employees aren't carrying firearms, you have to improvise with, how you're gonna protect yourself with the weapons and things that you have available to you. So again, not supposed to be a fair fight. You do what you have to do to protect yourself. If he wants to, sue you for going after his manhood, I don't think there's a judge or jury that's gonna rule in their favor if he's trying to kill you. So.
Is there such a thing as a fair fight? Okay, if you're competing in a boxing match or something, you have rules. Something like this, do you have rules? No, there are no rules, okay? And there's only one outcome that we want, right? Victory. We're not fighting to a draw here. You want to win. You want to leave that person disabled on the ground, and if they stop breathing, all the better. Okay? That was their goal. Let's take their goal away. What to expect when help arrives. The video touched on this very briefly. I think it's important to reinforce. When we get on scene, when we have a report that is felt through the emergency communication center that this is a viable active shooter type event, as a department, we are coming with everything, all resources. Okay, we're gonna have fire, we're gonna have rescue, they're gonna stage blocks away from the scene. There's gonna be a whole lot of police. Some of them are dressed like him, some might be dressed like me, some might be wearing jeans and a t-shirt because they're on their way home from the gym. Somebody might be in a suit, they're on their way home from court. They're all gonna have a gun. They've all been trained to go in, find the threat, and neutralize the threat. You know? So, we do not know what the threat is. Even if we have someone on the phone saying it's a white male, black pants, blue shirt. All right? So, are there likely to be several? Is this a unique outfit? Not hardly. Okay? I have basically almost black pants and a blue shirt. We don't know who the bad folks are. We have to assume everybody is potentially bad. Again, the Colorado movie theater issue. So, we may grab you, we may put you on the ground. Please do what obvious law enforcement folks tell you to do. Most departments equip their folks. If nothing else, they're gonna have a badge or an ID on a lanyard at their neck if they're not in uniform, or they may have some sort of a raid vest on that, indicates police, or a windbreaker. FBI uses windbreakers for everything, where they have FBI on the windbreaker. Okay, if those folks come in and they tell you to get on the floor, please get on the floor. Okay, I apologize if it's demeaning or if it gets your clothes dirty. This is life and death. Are we worried about dirty clothes? Negative. We want to go home in one piece, right? All of us do. So, get on the floor. Please don't rush at an officer. Help me, help me, help me, help me. Okay? That's been done before too, by the attacker. All right? So, anything to distract us, they're gonna do. So, we come in, we ask you to get on the floor, please get on the floor. If you see us stepping over the wounded, that's what we're going to do, okay? It's silly for us to come in and start, putting pressure on people's gunshot wounds and then have the shooter come up and execute us while we're helping the others, all right? So until we're sure that there's no more shooters and there's no secondary methods of violence being employed, like, booby traps and pipe bombs and that kind of thing in the background. That's our focus. Find the bad folks, neutralize them, make the area overall as safe as we can, and then come back and start tending to the wounded. You know, so, you get rushing outside and we corral everybody, but we tell you, get on the ground, just do as you're told, okay? Try to have your hands empty, okay? Nobody's gonna come out and shoot us with a foot gun, right? You know, it's not Austin Powers or something. Hands are the key thing. We wanna see empty hands. So even if you got your phone and you've dialed 911 and you've left it an open line, which is all great, when you start getting in front of us, just throw it in the pocket, throw it in your waistband, whatever. But hands out, hands empty is safe for us, and we'll get the scene secured. So, as far as demobilizing, let's say you've been in an office and you have been able to lock your door and turn your lights out, and you've silenced everything, you've got your blinds shut. So when we go to clear the building, we're gonna come in, our tactical force, and anywhere you go, mostly in the state, I mean, there's some remote areas that may not have this, but SWAT teams are gonna be activated. I mean, if we have an issue in Henrico, you're gonna have SWAT teams from Hanover, Richmond, and probably Chesterfield all here, if it's a large-scale event, helping us to control this event, okay? So they're gonna go through the whole building and check every space where there could be a person, a bad person, all right? So they're gonna get to your door, and they're gonna pound on that door and announce themselves as police. You can open the door. What are you gonna do? Take a moment, okay? Can bad guys knock on the door and say, it's okay, I'm the police? Absolutely. There's no special way that we say it that makes it any different. So, what we will do is we will find building management, we will find person with the master key. As we come through, we'll knock, we'll announce, we'll wait a moment, and then we'll open the door with the key. Okey-doke? So until you are absolutely certain it's the police, assume it isn't.
So, I don't know if we really touched on a whole lot, but it's very hard when we teach this to schools. In terms of locking the door, if you decide to stay in a room and lock the door, it's a very good option. But if you have other things available to barricade that door, use them. So, you know, whether it be tables, chairs, if you have a refrigerator in the room and you can push that up against the door, the more the better. And then you're kind of in a holding pattern, right? You haven't heard shots in 30 minutes, you've heard commotion in the hallway that you think is law enforcement, you start to relax a little bit. Should you let your guard down? No, absolutely not. Some of these things have gone on for 30, 45 minutes, an hour. That being said, you can't stay in here for indefinitely, right? So at some point, we're gonna be coming in, because we're gonna check every person, just like I said, where every place where a person can be hiding. So if we get keys from management and we're coming room by room, we're opening doors, but you got to barricade it. Again, that's fine. Assuming this is 2022, somebody's still going to have a working cell phone, right? We have police radios. You call 911 and say that there's somebody at this door in this building. They're saying they're the police. They can come over from communications, reach out to us on the radio, to make sure that it's us at the door. So that's an option also. So if that's the case, you get verification on the phone from 911 that it is the good guys at the door, then yeah, you can move the refrigerator, move the chairs, and make sure we can get in to do what we need to do.
What a lot of places do is they will have a code word, okay? And it can be absolutely anything that everyone knows. So that only open the door if you hear that code word. But if you're not sure, stay secluded, stay locked away, okay? We can get in a door. There's only a couple of doors in some banks that we cannot reach pretty quickly if we really want to, so don't sweat that. And then once we have it all secure, that's when we'll bring in the rescue folks to start tending to the wounded. Okay, at that point, and then we'll start, at the same time as we're doing that, on the police side, we're gonna be out and we're gonna start trying to coordinate and figure out where people are, who are we dealing with, who, you know, where have people run to, you know, accounting for everyone, so we have, you know, we have an idea what we should have in that building and what we've got outside of the building now. Okay, but it'll be lots and lots of mayhem for a very, very long time, and that's just the way it's gonna be. If you're in a remote area, the response, you know, I can't really say what it could be if you're, you know, way out in the middle of nowhere, but for any of the reasonably developed urbanized areas throughout the state, this is what you can expect. It's gonna be a multi-jurisdictional response, okay? We will all go help each other out. It happens in Richmond, we're sending folks to Richmond. We have tons of FBI and Secret Service and Homeland Security and all kinds of federal agencies in the state. They will get the alert through their own alert systems. They will show up to help us too. I mean, we've had, it wasn't actually a school shooter, but it was a shooting near a school in the county up near Woodman Road and Mountain Road. And we had, in the first 10 minutes, I think we had over 200 law enforcement folks on scene for that. And it was actually a student that had taken a shot at another student, some sort of neighborhood beat. So over 200, and of that, about 40 of them were folks that were not Henrico County Police related, other agencies.
All right, and one thing I want to touch on, sort of related. So what we were describing to you of how we're going to respond to an active shooter situation is different from basically any other type of, at least for hostage situations. In a hostage situation where somebody might have a gun, they're not actively shooting, it's not their goal just to take as many lives as possible. It could be a domestic situation where a husband is mad at his wife, whatever the case may be. We're not going to come bum rushing into the building like it's an active shooter. It's kind of the opposite. We're going to be in the area, we're going to try to slow things down, make contact with that person, and basically bring out a negotiator to try to end it peacefully. Because when we come bum rushing into a building like that, we're forcing something to happen, where we wind up getting the hostage hurt. So that situation doesn't happen very often, but again, active shooter, the rule is for us, when we get there, we don't wait for a second or third unit to form a tactical team. We're coming in. As soon as I get here on the first one, I'm going in, listening to where the gunshots are coming from, and that's where I'm going. Second person is going to be right behind me, so on and so forth.
One more time. So, this brings us pretty close to the end of our hour, so we are going to open up for some question and answer. Again, key thing, think about it ahead of time. You know, as you go through your daily routines, think about it. Where am I? What are my exits? What would I do if? Start playing those games with yourself as you go through your day. Number two, be in a position to act decisively. Okay? Denial doesn't help. We all do it. We're all human. But move to the action phase. You've got your 3 basic steps to consider in that order. Ideally, create distance. If not, hide. Thirdly, attack. Attack with aggression. This is your life. You have every right. Do whatever you need to do. Make sure that you still have a life tomorrow. Okay? So, do we have questions anywhere?
Brian, I'll let you kind of lead this, if you will, for us, Brian.
Sure, we've got a few in the chat right now. One of them is, if we are exiting a building, is there a specific location we should go to, such as a fire truck, an ambulance, etc.?
When you're exiting the building, it's highly unlikely if you're in the, just trying to create distance from an active scene, it's highly unlikely that the fire truck would be there. So no, the key thing you want to do is create distance and get out of sight. All right? So running across a great big wide open parking lot is not a great idea. In the video you saw, they stepped behind basically a stone masonry dumpster enclosure, and that's ideal because it's bulletproof, right? Most bullets are not going to penetrate cinder block or stone or whatever. It's very individual, but don't count on our vehicles, our first responder vehicles, to be there as any sort of protective barrier. Go for distance, go to get out of sight quickly. You know, if it is a big parking lot with lots of cars, get low, all right? If they can't see you, you're not a target, okay? Shooters go for easy targets. So get out of sight by staying low, lower than the height of a car. If you can get to the woods, so be it. As a group, for individual offices, you all should consider off-site meeting places. This is something that anybody would do if they were running a school system, is you don't just want 500 children running off into 10 different neighborhoods and across highways and everything else. So you always try to set up a few meeting points that would make sense. But again, those are away from the building and preferably out of sight. So over a hillside is good, into the woods is good, with a central meeting point or two, pre-planned, and that's easy enough to discuss on an office by office basis.
You get out safely and you're able to, once everything is calmed down and, you're not hurt and you just want to go home, that's fine. You need to let somebody from law enforcement, fire know that you were in the building and you got out of the building safely. Because once everything settles down, we're going to come in and get with management or whoever the case may be and find out who came to work this morning. We need to be able to account for everybody. So if you're out safely, that's great, but don't just go home without letting somebody know, even if you call into 911 and say that my name is so-and-so, I was in this building, I got out. We need to be able to account for everybody eventually.
And Drew, can I pick up just
Yes,
make
sir.
a quick on that as well? You brought up a good point, which is the reason we are on these IDs. So if you're at a field office, if you're at a central office, anywhere that's a DARS facility, you need to have this ID with you at all times, 24/7 when you're in this building, or any building in the state. Because we can come in and we can track it. We can track and see who come in this building because people in and out all day long. So that is a quick way for us as general services to track who was in that building, which is the key to having this ID. And they need to see this. When you want this around your neck, if you're running or anything else with law enforcement, that we're part of DARS, we're DARS employees. So it's very important that we keep these IDs with us at all times.
Okay. How about, next question?
So we have one question from Nicole. Can you address how situations have been handled when a civilian with a legal firearm shoots an active shooter in their defense?
So if a person is legally carrying a firearm and they respond to an active shooter, is that the way I understand it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I think if we've had those situations.
So I know I've heard, I think it was in Texas several months ago, the church shooting where a guy came into as an active shooter to a church, and there was a gentleman in the congregation that was armed and took him out in one shot. And, as far as I'm concerned, he's a hero. We're not going to get into a political discussion about whether people should or shouldn't carry firearms, open carry, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Yeah. So what the law really looks at is that your actions are reasonable. Okay, so if somebody comes into a store and shoplifts a candy bar, is it reasonable to then shoot that person? They are a criminal. Can you shoot them? And the answer is, in the eyes of the law, no. That is not a reasonable response. So force level should be reasonable. So if you have an active shooter and in defense of yourself and in the protection of life, you also are a shooter, that's even Steven. Okay? So state law varies, but it's very hard to imagine that there would be charges pressed against someone who is legally carrying a firearm and uses that in defense of life against someone who is illegally trying to take life. Okay, so don't worry about that. That will get worked out just fine. But don't shoot the shoplifters or the trespassers, okay? It's got to be reasonable. The old story is, all you have to do is get them across the threshold of your house, and then you can open up, okay? Those days are gone. Just because they've crossed the threshold of your house, doesn't mean they're shoot-worthy, okay? We want to match the level of response to the level of threat. You know, it could just be a mental health consumer, let's say, or an autistic child or something who doesn't recognize their own home and walks into the wrong house. That does not open the door for you to execute them. Okay? So, another question?
Yeah, Lori has a question. Assume that I am in a room hiding by myself without means of communication. Someone knocks on the door and says, "Police, open the door." I probably won't, but will you breach the door to gain access?
When the time comes, yes, we will open that door. The building is not safe from the event until we have gotten every space that's big enough to harbor a human being. Okay? So we will get the door open if we need to. The best bet is for you to stay in the room quietly unless you can be assured that the people knocking and asking to get in are the good guys. Okay, so we will find a way in. Hopefully we can find the building manager or the department manager or whomever with the master key. And if not, we have all kinds of big old toys that'll get into any old door. Okay? Not a concern unless our guys break down doors, which they really enjoy. They even gave it a name. They call it breaching. Okay? It may insult the whale's breathing, but it's what we do. So we will get in the door. If you're not positive it's police, assume it isn't and just lay low where you're safe.
We have one more question in the chat. If there is an active shooter in the area, not directly in our building, how will others in the area be notified?
So off the top of my head, I can, again, just speaking for Henrico, this hasn't happened very often, but I know a couple years ago, we had a instance where a guy had robbed a convenience store in an area. He was armed and he took off on foot and ran into the neighborhood behind the store that he robbed. Within about 15 or 20 minutes, this was at about 11 o'clock at night, somehow, and I wish I could speak more clearly on how the process works, but everybody in a certain geographic area got a phone call.
Reverse 911.
Okay, reverse 911. That says, and it's an automated message, I believe, that says that there's an event that's happening in your neighborhood, report suspicious activity, stay indoors, things of that nature. But as far as generally speaking, it would take some time for that to happen, but if you look outside and you see, realistically, it's probably going to be 50, 60, 70 police cars and cops running into a building, that's generally just your cue to lock the doors, stay inside, and, protect yourself. But it's going to take time for notifications to come out, whether it be through the media or the reverse 911. Just trust your instincts. If you see a bunch of police grabbing their guns and running into a building, it's best to go the other way.
So, the answer to that question is, it depends on where you are. What we can do here in Henrico with what Andrew referred to, the reverse 911 system, where we geoplot an area and then send out automated calls throughout that area to alert people. Not every jurisdiction in Virginia can do that, okay? So what we will do is law enforcement will be in touch with media outlets immediately, and who knows, if it's school related, there's all kinds of texting systems and email systems and stuff that can be employed, but we'll go out over social media, we'll go out over normal mass media to get word out as things develop. So clue into your radio, watch your Facebook feeds and all that, but, and then just use common sense, all right? If you see 50 police cars around the building next door, that is not the time to walk over and start grabbing police by the shoulder and asking them what's going on, okay? So, get yourself safe, secure your area next, go into a lockdown mode if you can, and the word will get to you. Please don't approach us at an active scene to ask.
Something else to consider, it's been probably, 2 years now, in Henrico at least, you can text 911. And our communications has the ability to receive those texts, geoplot, just like it was a phone call. I don't know if that's been implemented statewide, some of your smaller jurisdictions, that you text 911. I don't know for sure if you get a response, but that might be worth reaching out to your local police department to see if the jurisdiction that you're in can get 911 texts.
And that's it for the questions.
I have a question. I want to, maybe, I don't know whether you can or not, but, elaborate on the incident that happened in Texas. What was the breakdown you think that happened with those kids that got killed in that school?
I have no more information on that than anybody else does. I have not, as far as within the law enforcement community, I haven't seen any privileged information or breakdown on that situation. And I'm really reluctant. The question is, I don't know if everyone could hear it, but the question was basically, what was the breakdown in Uvalde? Because in the Texas Uvalde shooting, it took law enforcement a long time to respond in that one.
I can tell you by the way that we're trained to react to an active shooter, we're always told not to Monday morning quarterback. We should learn from everything that we do. Any critical incident we respond to after everything is over and done with, we do a debrief to figure out what went well, what didn't go well, how can we improve things. Again, I wasn't part of the Uvalde thing, obviously. It seemed to be an abysmal failure of response. And yeah, I think we all saw the news reports of how that was just an absolute failure. And it shouldn't have happened to start with. It shouldn't happen again. That's not the way we're trained. It's supposed to be, if somebody's actively firing rounds, we attack the threat. We don't try to negotiate. I'm not going to stand outside the room and try to become friends and get them to put the gun down. Not supposed to happen that way.
It's so much, they call, you go to the doctor, and what does a doctor do? A doctor practices medicine, right? And I always got a kick out of that. Do I want a doctor that's practicing? No, I want a doctor that's good at it. But the point I'm making is, so much of what we do is we learn by trial and error. I mean, our policies manual, when I started, was this thick. Now we can't even print it. It would, we don't have enough trees left to print the thing. Yeah, we learn as things go. Every situation has its unique features, and we try to learn from it. Uvalde had some issues, no question about it. I just don't know enough to cast aspersions on someone else, what they did. Okay, I wasn't there. I have been on, I've been on 4 what we thought were potentially school shooting events in Henrico County. Personally responded to 4 of them, okay? And we were in the building, and we were going through clearing the building immediately. I'm confident in my fellow officers and our training about how we will respond in these situations, okay? But I cannot speak for every sheriff's department and police department and whatever throughout the state or the country. Okay, because there's always going to be the human factor. Well, until we go full robotic, which is still weeks away, we're going to have a human factor involved. Okay, well, factoring in technical difficulties, we're exactly at an hour, I think. So, Very good. If there's nothing else, we will close this down and appreciate y'all's attention and your interest all very much.
Thank you guys for coming, and, thank you for, participating online as well, and, we will have attendance for the folks that are by Zoom. And Brian, do you have any closing remarks before we stop recording?